I guess culturally, I'm Indian. I was born and brought up in Bahrain, and I went on to study in India. And from there, I went on to study, did a master's in UK, and then Helsinki. And then I came back to India to work as a sustainability consultant. And I also went on to this design research consulting during my time in India. And then at that point, I decided to do a PhD. I'm trained as an architect. That's my professional background. But I think being an architect has opened doors to, and that way of thinking, being a visual designer and thinker, it opens doors to thinking about other disciplines differently. And so it's allowed me to do a lot of transdisciplinary work. Yeah. I think when I was a kid, I didn't really have when I was younger, maybe when I didn't really have a clear definition of what I wanted to do, something creative. But I think I started off with wanting to be a fashion model, which was really silly. And then I realized that was something I couldn't do because I did not have the height or, the height. I can go with height for now. And then I was interested in fashion design clothes. And when I was growing up, I used to collect a lot of magazines your Femina and your Vogue, and I would take out always, the clothes section and collect them. So I was very interested in clothing and things like that at that, I guess, when I was a teenager. But as I grew up, for Indian parents, they were like, how are you going to make money out of this? And I was like, I don't know. That's something I want to do. But I was kind of talked out of it, and it kind of went on hold, I guess, this idea of going into fashion design. And then when I went into college, that's my 11th and 12th grade in Bangalore. At that time, I was quite interested in writing and I wanted to be a journalist. So I had different ideas of what I was going to be. And, but my parents really wanted me to do a professional course, I guess, to guarantee income in the future, as good Indian parents. And your kids can only be an engineer, doctor, I guess those are the two, or lawyer maybe. Those are, the acceptable options. So I got into architecture by mistake because I went into, at that time there were competitive exams, and I was giving the competitive exam for India, for Karnataka, to get into an engineering school or whatever. I gave the exam. I had a terrible score. That showed my lack of interest in doing things like this. And I don't think much of exams as well as a way to, assign merit to somebody. I went to the board, and all I was interested in was going to a place that was very interesting for me. And I chose Manipal Institute of Technology because I was very familiar with Manipal. I grew up there. I mean, it's very close to where my parents are from, where my dad's from, my mom. And I've always gone there, and I always looked up, life over there and thought it was very interesting. You had all these college students. It's a very vibrant, diverse space. So, and I chose architecture because I did not want to do engineering or medical. So I got into it super accidentally. There was no plan. I didn't have an idea. It was just that there were things that I did not want to do. And I think that got me into architecture. I guess from there on, the career path sort of, and I think that sort of sets the tone of, I'm open to experimentation, and it just turns out architecture suited me so well because I had some creative skills to start with, and you get to hone that through the course in the 5 years. There was obviously the period of being very lost and, what am I doing over here? And then I realized I really enjoy doing these things. I really enjoy studying people and understanding how they use spaces. And I think that sort of governed and using design skills to actually solve problems, big problems, whether it's space or anything else. And I think that has sort of governed what I've ended up doing later on, whether it's community projects that was set up in Helsinki, in India, and then now in Brisbane, Australia. Yeah. I think I had moved to Helsinki after I did a 1-year master's in Glasgow at Glasgow School of Art. And at that time, we were sitting in the global financial crash We were not getting the jobs we wanted, wherever we were going. And so I opted to study for another year. And I went to TAIC, which is the School of Design, which has now become Aalto University, a big university, which has joined three schools together. And I went there to do a transdisciplinary course called Creative Sustainability. And during my time over there, I was exposed to different disciplines, and we would work together on different solutions to different problems. And it was very exciting. I did lots of exciting things like learning how to screen print, and then understanding how museums work. I did a course on museum design or museum curation, something like that. And during my time over there, I guess I was kind of looking for a way to get a little more involved in the community. And and that time Facebook had become quite popular. So I think somebody had posted on Facebook that, hey, I have this idea. How about we paint the murals? How about we paint these walls? These plywood walls that basically hide construction sites. In Helsinki, we're seeing all of these walls. They have nothing on them. They look ugly. Why don't we get together with other artists and community members and do that? So so that was Paulina Seppala who posted that message. And I responded, and another girl responded, Satu Kettunen and me. And that became the founding members of this which is now an art collective called Multicolored Dreams, where we held our first project in 2010, Helsinki Design Week, where we actually got together with other artists. And Satu, Paulina, we were involved in managing how the project would go, but also we were also artists within the project. So, and we met lots of other artists. We also, like, for example, I guess one of my favorite moments is that calling up the Parliament of Helsinki, because they had plywood walls, which were much nicer in the sense that they were painted gray, dark gray, and calling them up and going like, hey, we'd like to use, I was probably more polite, but hey, we'd like to use your walls. And on a phone call, they're like, yeah, sure, just send us an email and we'll get this sorted. And I had not experienced that level of the lack of bureaucracy before. Like just someone saying yes on a phone call, just send us your plan on an email and you will, and that's it. And then we were able to like paint their walls and things like that. I don't think 10 years later we'd be able to do something like that, but back then, like, we got them. And I guess from there, I sort of realized, just the power of asking somebody, hey, can I do that? Will you help me do that? Or, and so, and it goes on to become bigger things. We also managed to get, like, Helsinki is an expensive place to be. And we also managed to get things like free printing from people who were very excited about the project, because 2010 also marked the year that graffiti, they had a zero graffiti policy in Helsinki up till then. And that marked the end of that policy, because they were basically, you would have been fined very badly if you did any kind of artistic tagging on buildings or even graffiti or any kind of artwork, creative artwork at that time. So that sort of marked that time. And it came at a good time that we did our first project with the Helsinki Design Week in 2010. So a lot of things, we had a lot of elements working very well for us at that time. And yeah, that's what the project was about. And then it went on to have a yearly sort of collaboration with Helsinki Design Week. And now it's become just an art collective that goes around places in Helsinki or other parts of Finland, or even, if I'm correct, they've even gone to places like Estonia to do murals and, art and things like that. Yeah, and all of the artworks by the artists, they were curated, not too much to the point that we just didn't want, because we were earning the trust of, for example, the Parliament was giving us permission, and, we had like supermarkets giving us permission to use these walls or other stakeholders. We did a bit of curation, like talking to the artists, but most of it was such good work and with such deep meaning that it was very easy to like deploy the project. Yeah. I think it really depended on the artist. We didn't really have like a theme at that time. I think the theme began to come later because we didn't even know what would happen with the first one. Like, Like we got those walls, and at that time we were just surprised that we got them, and we were very open to everything that ideas that people were giving. Like for example, one artist just wrote the word sorry in such big on the wall, and this was along the Parliament wall. And I remember like people just having really emotional reactions to just seeing that word. It's like someone has finally told them sorry for something, whatever's happening in their lives, right? So it has that very emotional reaction, and it was very interesting to see that. And it was just like at the corner of a road, so you couldn't miss it. You couldn't miss that word, and it was very interesting. Another artist, for example, was talking about, I think it's in Finland itself, about people from Thailand who come to Finland to pick apples or some fruit. And we're talking about the rights of those people, and did an artwork where they combined painting and fabric onto a wall. So that was, yeah. So another one, another artwork was about energy use, and they showed that a Jeep, and in Finland you have a lot of reindeers, so it was kind of talking about how our energy use is a bit over the top, and in the future your cars are going to be pulled by reindeers. So it was very interesting, and it was a work just done by rope. So yeah, so there were like different themes and things that came out in the first one. Yeah. So I came back to India, and I thought at that time when I was in Helsinki, I would do a PhD. But to be very honest, I was not ready for that. So I returned back to India, and I was working as a sustainability consulting. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, but there was this big artwork project called the Wall Project. It was quite popular. It was along Phoenix Marketplace, all of these, similar to Multicolored Dreams, like they were painting walls with different art and things like that. And I think it was run by someone called Danya Pillow. I don't know what she does now, but back then, and she had other collaborators, but she's the one I remember. So so I guess at that time, like, because there was already this kind of project, I was kind of looking for something, but I didn't quite know what it is that. So I sat quietly for a while, and then a friend of mine and me, she likes to make chocolates, and I like to bake. So we were just talking about, liking chocolates and baking and things like that. And she was speaking about how we want to do something for like for some social cause, but we didn't quite know how we would do that. And then I think on Facebook, she saw that at that time, Milap was pretty new, the crowdfunding platform in India. So she saw something on Milap and I think she was also friends with the co-founders of Milap. So she saw something on their page about them starting off trying to raise money for this Devdasi woman. And she wrote a message just there, then and there, saying that, hey, how about we do a bake sale? And she tagged me. And we were like, yeah, let's do that. Let's raise money for this. And the concept of a bake sale at that time did not exist, because you just have your Indian sweets. So so that became the next project, the Bake Collective. Again, it started with this single project where we worked with Milap to fundraise money, if I'm right, 50,000 rupees, I'm not sure. But for a Devdasi woman to like set up a business. And over there, we just had like, we had a combination of crowdfunding online, and we also did bake sales on the side. And together, like after we did that and we raised money for this organization, we had other people asking us, like, other nonprofits asking us, like, can you help us, raise money for this and this? And then that's when Charlene and I developed a model where we would like support projects of nonprofits, typically nonprofits who are like in their early 2 years, because they usually have difficulty getting like an FCRA or whatever it is to like get money online. So, and we would use Milap's platform to like, support us. And that has worked really, really well. I think we started that in, I want to say 2013. Yeah, 2013. And we've done a range of bake sales and worked with a range of nonprofits throughout the years for different things. Like when Kashmir Kashmir had really bad flooding, we raised money for that. And with each bake sale is always a different target. We also raise money for COVID pandemic. And when we know we can raise more money, we sometimes increase our target amount, but we try not to push it as well. Yeah, and what happened with time was that the so much trust has been built between like people who work with us and things like that, that the bake sales became symbolic. So we would start the crowdfunding and end with like this big party on the street in Bandra, in front of Al's tattoo. That's typically where we would have our bake sales. Um, and and it was like it sort of marked the end of the crowdfunding that we would do for anything. So yeah, and then that sort of expanded to Bangalore, and then also I moved to Bangalore, so we were continuing to do things in both Mumbai and Bangalore. And yeah, during my time as a design research, that's when I was doing design research consulting in Bangalore. Yeah, I was also doing the big collective thing at the same time. So yeah, so that's basically the trajectory. And before I actually moved to Bangalore, for around 6 months, I normally like end up volunteering with a lot of organizations, and I was volunteering with Kranti during my time in Bombay, even while I was doing the Bay Collective work and all of that. I was volunteering with Kranti, and then I quit my job of being a sustainability consultant, and I joined Kranti for like 6 months. And during that time, I also got the opportunity to go to the Swedish Institute, Young Connectors of the Future, as part of my stint during that time, and as part of my work that I was doing at Kranti. And I worked with them. And Kranti is basically an organization which works with daughters of sex workers in Bombay. So we were doing work. I was doing all sorts of things. It wasn't like one thing. It was like writing grant applications, and things like that. So a whole varied range of things. Yeah, strategic design, and yeah. So I guess in my PhD, what I've seen with each of these projects that I worked on was like technology has played like an important role in it. Like Facebook, be it Facebook. Obviously, there's Facebook has a lot to answer for today in terms of surveillance and how they mitigate image and all of that. There are all those kinds of problems with it for sure. But at the same time, it was able to like bring communities together, pan borders and stuff like that. So we like in each of these projects, we were able to take like advantage of Facebook and like crowdfunding platforms like Milap, for example, to sort of tackle a small part of a social issue. I wouldn't say we tackled it everything, like a very small part of it. So I guess in my PhD as an architect, I was quite interested in the use of augmented reality, and I saw the popularity of the game Pokemon Go. And I quite liked what Pokemon Go did, where you're able to see virtual elements in the real world and you're able to play with it. And I was interested in those kind of aspects for design and storytelling. So that eventually became my PhD about how we can use immersive technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, to act for where we use storytelling and narrative driven purposeful design which are actually then created by people who experience marginalization of some sort to for others to actually engage their versions of reality or their world, so to speak. So that became sort of the PhD, and that's what I was doing. I guess I said that in a really messed up way, and I'm happy to edit later. As part of my PhD, we developed the Cherry Bench project, which was actually which is a project out here in Brisbane, where I worked in this area called Kelvin Grove with the organization Communify, Kate of Communify, Kate Wildman. And basically she identified the problem of social isolation in Chatty Bench way before the pandemic. And this was like way in 2019. And I had just developed this prototype of what I thought people could use to actually make. So my goal was to teach other people to also make something similar to the prototype that I'd created. So I went to Kate Wildman. She told me, like, she was like, there are bigger issues at play. I want to deal with, social isolation. And she's like, I've put this sign on a bench, which is just outside our premises, our office over here. And it just says happy to chat. And I really am trying to encourage people to talk to each other so that, in some ways so that they make friends and they build social capital in Kelvin Grove. So Kelvin Grove is a very diverse community. We have the campus of QUT out there. So therefore, a lot of students live in that suburb, in that area. Also, we have a lot of something that's called affordable housing out here, where the government provides cheap housing, or not necessarily the government, but there are different providers that provide more cheaper, less than market rate housing for single parents or people who have just, for example, who have mental issues, or someone who's been incarcerated and who has just got out of jail or something, or just simply low income as well. So we had like this really big, really a mix of people, super transient population because of the students in there who come, there's a churn every 2-3 years. So people don't stay there long enough to like really build local connections. So we looked at this project so we developed this project, which was over a period of 10 weeks, where 16 storytellers came together and they learned this technology, they learned how to code, they learned how to create, what is narrative design, how do you tell a story, storytelling, digital storytelling, everything using like their mobile phone and computers. And we use this tool called Twine, which is an interactive fiction tool, which allowed us to build this artifact that you can now experience on your phone. So yeah, that took 10 weeks. And at the end of that, we had a little celebration, a community get together. And this entire project was actually planned before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit us. And so the project had to completely change because it was modeled to be face-to-face. And then once the pandemic hit us, we went completely online. So it was quite interesting to like do all of those things. And I think I've learned a lot from all of that process. And we have 16 stories now at Kelvin Grove, and they're all geolocated. So in the same way you would, when you play Pokemon Go, you go to a particular place to catch Pokemon. In these stories, you have to be in a particular place to catch stories. So you have to be there. Only then the story continues. So it's a different way of experiencing Kelvin Grove. It's a different way of, people telling their stories. It's not so obvious to everyone. So the project was really successful from that point, because then it became a storytelling festival. So the project took place in 2020, and in 2021, we had a storytelling festival which ran for like 3 weeks from November 2021 to December 2021. And there we actually went back to the bench, because initially we were supposed to work with the bench. They would have been the nodes where stories would appear on someone's phone, but we were not able to do that because of the pandemic. We had to like really be flexible and modify how we were adapting. And adapt to the situation. But in the storytelling festival, it was a lot about face-to-face meeting and people coming onto benches and performing and, telling a story about themselves, where they come from. And there were all kinds of things, there were musicians and stuff like that. So that's been sort of like the journey of Chatty Bench project. At the same time, there was another project that also took place as part of the PhD, which is called Transhuman Sonder, which actually looks at looks at how 4 women of color, and over here, I use Loretta Ross's version of woman of color, where it's more a term we use in terms of solidarity. and not to like give like a blanket statement for everyone. I think it's more in solidarity with other minorities. So women of color, and it's about their entanglements with the Indian banyan tree. So that was another successful project because it went on to like, and it was similar to Chatty Bench project, that it was geolocated stories, but it was in another area of Brisbane, which is the this Brisbane City Botanical Gardens. And we had 4 artists. They were highly skilled, visual artists. There was a filmmaker, an experience designer, visual artist, a digital artist as well. And they're all from different parts of the world, like Vietnam, Thailand, etc. And they spoke about like their connection to the Indian banyan tree because it also grows in their country. And so it was about storytelling, about pluralistic storytelling about the tree and the connection of it, because otherwise it just stands here in Australia and nobody knows why this tree is sort of valuable. So yeah, so this project went on to like feature in different conference. Well, both of them went on to like get published about and appear in different conferences and exhibitions. And yeah, so that's the PhD stuff. And right now, I think my focus is to close the PhD and end it. That's where I am in the state. Yeah, I'm looking for my next adventure, so to speak, the next thing that I would do. Yeah, and I'm very excited about that. So failure. Yeah, I'm not really sure I like this word failure, because like I always question, do we actually fail? To me, it's like an opportunity for something that is just not visible right now, but will only become really known with time. So, but yeah, I mean, for the sake of answering this question, I think when I was with Kranti, I had applied for a grant with Open IDEO at that time, with the intention of building a school. And we were very successful with the grant. We were awarded the grant. But due to certain situation and due to whatever was going on during that situation, I had to leave Kranti. And I was quite upset about it because I had really like, I had this vision that we'd be building the school together. And what happened with that was then I went on from there to actually work with Gensler. And I think because of my time in Gensler design, I think I picked up a lot of, I think it was a really good experience in terms of working with people on design, with communities, and also how do you work with stakeholders. There were a lot of lessons there, which I think then informed a lot of what my PhD was about. So I think, I don't know if I would be doing a PhD if I was building a school with Kranti still, So I think all of those just became opportunities for something else. And I think it's made me very open to the idea of something's not working out. There's probably something else on the pipeline. I'm just not seeing it right now. Yeah. Okay, so I guess from a personal point of view, I would have to say it's my dad and mom, because they've always been very engaged in the community, even while they worked like their other jobs. They were very engaged with like the community in Bahrain, always working. Like both my parents have always been very involved with social causes, even though it was under the umbrella of like a church or whatever. I think they've always been very that's been very, so their work has been very influential for me, and I think it has driven what I have eventually gone on to do as well. I would say my eldest brother Ryan and his wife Anila are doing some amazing things. Their first son is on the autistic spectrum, and so what they have gone on to do is actually develop an app which allows people to communicate, or help autistic kids to communicate, which is called Fabula, which I thought was really, really exciting. My sister, the work that she's doing out in the US, and then my cousin Foster, who works with cancer drugs out in the US, and then my cousin Amit, who's a plastic surgeon in Dubai, but he works with kids who he also has a tendency, both of them have a tendency to work with kids or adults who come from, I guess, hard backgrounds, difficult backgrounds, and to help them with their skills. And I think that's sort of been the running theme, and all of them have used their skills not just to genuinely help people, and not help in like in a patronizing way, but like to actually make a difference of some sort. So I think those have been like major inspirations in my personal life. In my professional, it has to be, it started off with, I think, Laurie Baker, who was an architect, a British architect based in India, who just used like the simple component of the brick and he turned it into these marvelous structures. But he was a bit of a Robin Hood because he did these grand houses for people in Kerala, but he, with the goal that he would build for the poor. So I guess for the poor in Kerala, and he made like these beautiful, beautiful structures with just brick. And I was introduced to him by one of my friend's dad when I was so clueless and I chose architecture. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm entering right now. And in conversation with me, he told me about Laurie Baker. And when I looked up Laurie Baker, I was like, oh my God, this is the kind of work I want to be doing. Alongside, I think I've been very lucky to do a PhD. And so the work of academics and thinkers of First Nations, Black, of color background, like your Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Eve Tuck, Adrienne Murray Brown, Sarah Ahmed, Octavia Butler. I think they've all given me a language to speak with and, you know, the permission to sort of exist and do what I do. So there are all kinds of inspirations, I think. Yeah. My younger self, I think don't be scared. You'll figure it out, and turns out you did. Yeah. I think I was very terrified as a young person because I felt very aimless and I did not seem to have the passion that I saw in other people. Like they wanted to be a doctor and they just knew it, and I didn't have that. I think that has hit me much later in life, you know, and so I was very, very terrified. Yeah, I was just like, I'm not interested in anything. Why? I don't get it. Yeah. Yeah. I also think like every time someone told me that I could not do something, I just went ahead and did it. And sometimes a lot of times I did it out of spite, like to just prove them wrong. But then it became the thing that it became like, and so I've learned that my anger and, you know, the negative you know, people that consider, you know, what you consider as negative emotions as, you know, or maybe not negative, but like, you know, like your grief, your anger, that they all become this tool. And I feel like I've used that to like spur creative work and creative projects and things like that. I think like, for example, in Big Collective, like just personally, I was sitting in the middle of a breakup when Big Collective happened and I put all my energy into that. And so it was like, you know, so like this very personal thing had happened and I didn't know what to do with myself. But, you know, all of these projects gave me something else and gave me something more outside myself to work on and to look at. And then that has just become like the running theme and things I enjoy. Yeah.